Nero is dead. He stabbed himself in the throat in a garden outside Rome on a June evening in 68 AD, helped along by his secretary who steadied his hand when his nerve failed. The last thing he reportedly said was, "What an artist the world is losing in me." He meant himself. He always meant himself. For 3 decades, the Julio-Claudian dynasty ran the Roman Empire like a family business where everyone tried to murder everyone else and somehow kept the lights on. Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero. Each one stranger than the last. Each one eventual proof that unlimited power and inherited authority is not, historically, a great combination. And now the last of them is dead in a garden, and the most powerful office in the world is just sitting there. What happens next is 12 months of history so chaotic that even the historians who lived through it couldn't quite believe they were writing it down. 4 men will claim the title of emperor. 3 of them will die. Rome will fight itself, legion against legion, citizen against soldier, on its own streets, in its own temples, on the steps of its own capital. You are going to watch every minute of it. This is 69 AD. History calls it the year of the 4 emperors. I call it the worst job interview in human history. The man who picks up the empire first is named Galba, and he is exactly as fun as that name sounds. Servius Sulpicius Galba is 71 years old, arthritic, partially lame, and possessed of the social warmth of a marble column that disapproves of you. He has spent decades in military and administrative service. He is competent, experienced, and deeply constitutionally unable to understand why people need to be managed rather than simply ordered. He gets the job because the governor of a Spanish province declaring himself emperor seems less threatening than whoever might declare themselves emperor in Rome, and sometimes that's enough. The army marches him to the capital. The Senate recognizes him. The people wave. Galba arrives in Rome and immediately establishes his governing philosophy. No bonuses. The Praetorian Guard, Rome's elite palace guard, the organization that has made and unmade emperors for generations, expects a payment for their loyalty. Every new emperor pays it. It is not optional. It is how the system works. Galba looks at the expectation and says, and this is a direct quote from Tacitus, "I recruit soldiers. I do not buy them." There is a silence that contains the entire rest of this story. He's not wrong exactly. The bonus system has been bleeding the treasury for years. Someone probably should stop it. The problem is that Galba is stopping it, with the money that was specifically owed to the men holding the swords. He makes other decisions in this spirit. He executes people for perceived disloyalty, without trials. He appoints 3 advisors universally despised by everyone in Rome, then refuses to hear any complaints about them because Galba is not a man who entertains the possibility that he got something wrong. He has no heir, so in December he solves this by adopting one. He picks a young nobleman named Piso, steady, well-born, politically harmless, exactly the sort of man Galba trusts. Standing in the room when this announcement is made is a man named Marcus Salvius Otho. Otho has been following Galba for months, flattering him, traveling with him, being visibly supportive in ways that are legible as, "I expect something in return for this." He did not expect Piso. He gives himself 4 days to think it over, and then he goes to collect what he believes he is owed. Otho is not what you'd call a serious person. He's 40, dressed at all times as though he's going somewhere important, and famous primarily for being friends with Nero and for being the man whose wife Nero eventually stole. His ex-wife is dead now. Nero is dead. Otho has spent the last decade running a quiet province in Spain and thinking about Rome. He is charming in the way that some people are charming, effortlessly, contagiously, in a way that makes you overlook the fact that he has never done anything particularly difficult. He is not especially interested in hard work. He is extremely interested in getting back to the city. On January 15th, 69 AD, 23 days after Galba named Piso, Otho slips away from a public sacrifice, collects 23 soldiers he has been quietly bribing for weeks, and goes directly to the Praetorian barracks. 23 soldiers. He starts with 23 soldiers. By the time he gives his speech at the camp, hundreds have joined. By the time he makes the promise Galba refused to make, the bonus, the payment, the basic professional acknowledgement that soldiers are not volunteers, the Praetorians are lifting him onto their shoulders and cheering. Galba is in the forum when the news arrives. He gets into a litter and moves toward the trouble, then moves away from it as the reports change, then is abandoned by his escort when it becomes clear this is not going to be fine. He is killed on the steps of a temple. His litter bearers put him down and ran. His chosen heir, Piso, is found hiding in a temple some streets away and killed there. The guard brings Otho Galba's head on a pole. He asks them to put it somewhere he doesn't have to look at it. Otho is emperor of Rome. He has been planning this for approximately 4 days. He will be emperor for 95 days. While Otho was charming his way into power, the Rhine legions had already made their own decision. They chose Aulus Vitellius. Vitellius was governing Lower Germany, a prestigious posting given to men considered manageable, which should have been a warning to everyone involved. He is large, enormously, conspicuously, historically large. Ancient sources describe banquets that began at breakfast and extended through 4 meals a day. His signature dish was reportedly a platter called the Shield of Minerva, pike livers, pheasant brains, flamingo tongues, lamprey roe, arranged on a dish so large it required a special kiln to fire. He commissioned this dish repeatedly. He had ingredients shipped from across the empire. This is the man with 2 full legions now marching on Rome. Otho sends armies north. The armies fight. Otho's forces lose. And then, this is the part no one fully predicted, Otho kills himself. He's not in immediate danger. He's in a safe location with reinforcements available. His generals tell him the war is recoverable. He listens. Then he goes to his quarters, burns all his private correspondence so it cannot be used against anyone, distributes money to his slaves, and tells his people to make peace with Vitellius. In the morning, he dies from a single self-inflicted wound. The historians don't quite know what to do with this. Otho was not a man anyone expected to be capable of that kind of restraint. But there it is, 95 days of power, a generous exit, and a legacy so strange that even Tacitus, a man not given to sentiment, found himself writing something close to admiration. Vitellius enters Rome. He throws the first of what will be many banquets. Vitellius is not a cruel man. He is lazy, expensive, and politically dependent on soldiers who have spent months marching and are now billeted in a city, but he is not cruel. The treasury, already damaged by Nero's personal spending in a year of civil war, begins to visibly fail. Vitellius's Rhine troops, far from home, far from the disciplined frontier, settle into Rome and do what armies do when given a city and no enemy. But something is forming on the other side of the empire. The Eastern legions, 3 legions plus auxiliaries, stationed in Judea suppressing a revolt that has been grinding on for 3 years, have been watching. Their general is a man named Vespasian. He is 60 years old. He is from a non-aristocratic family. His grandfather was a soldier. His father collected taxes. Everything he has, he earned. He has watched Galba, Otho, and Vitellius take turns destroying each other, and has so far stayed out of it. In July of 69 AD, the Eastern legions decide they are done waiting. They declare Vespasian emperor. He responds to this in a way that tells you everything about him. He doesn't rush. Before going anywhere near Rome, Vespasian goes to Alexandria. He secures Egypt, which controls the grain supply that feeds the capital, and then sends his generals ahead while he organizes logistics and support. While every other man this year sprinted for the throne, Vespasian stops to make sure the empire will actually have food. It is the kind of decision that sounds boring until you realize it is the reason he wins. His generals push through northern Italy. They fight Vitellius's forces at Cremona in a night battle that ends decisively and badly for the Vitellians. Then they march south. Vitellius, when the Flavian army reaches Rome, does something surprising. He tries to give up. He formally abdicates in front of witnesses. He goes to put on civilian clothes. His own supporters refuse to accept it. Because the Vitellian soldiers know what happens to the losing side of a civil war, and they would rather keep fighting. The battle for Rome is street by street. Buildings burn. The Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, the sacred center of the Roman state, catches fire and is destroyed. Romans killing Romans in the shadow of Rome's most sacred temple. You stand on a side street and watch the smoke. Vitellius is found hiding in the palace complex. He has apparently disguised himself and blocked a door with a mattress, which is the kind of detail that history records with what you might read as pity. He is brought out, hands tied, a noose around his neck, soldiers making cuts as they drag him through the streets. Not enough to kill him, enough to hurt. He is brought to the Gemonian stairs. He is killed there. His body is thrown in the Tiber. 8 months. He lasted 8 months. Vespasian arrives in Rome in the spring of 70 AD. He rules for 10 years. He rebuilds the treasury through tax reform and personal frugality. He begins construction of the Colosseum on the site of Nero's private pleasure lake, because replacing a dictator's personal vanity project with a public entertainment venue is good politics. He founds the Flavian dynasty, which will produce 2 more emperors after him. His last words, reportedly, as he lay dying in 79 AD. "Oh dear, I think I'm becoming a god." He was joking. In 1 year, 4 emperors, 3 dead, 2 major battles in northern Italy, 1 sacred hill in flames. The Praetorian Guard sold their loyalty twice. An emperor abdicated and was murdered by his own men for doing it. Rome fought itself, burned its own temples, threw its own rulers into the Tiber, and came out the other side with a functioning civilization. That is either the most reassuring or the most disturbing thing about Rome, depending on who you are and what you think institutions are for. But today, for now, one practical man who took the long route sits on the throne, makes a joke about divinity, and starts making lists of what needs fixing. That's how empires survive their worst years. Someone boring shows up and gets to work.